You are watching Ballin VA Podcast.
Sponsored by Transitions Empowerment. And here are your hosts, Larry, Mira, and Wube Gabre.
Welcome to another episode of Ballin VA. Larry, we stepping back into the Petersburg area, the Tri-City area. We got a Petersburg native. He's a graduate of Petersburg High and Virginia State University. He did play-by-play for the Petersburg Generals back in the day in the Coastal Plain League. He was also a radio announcer for the Richmond Braves. He was a sports director at VSU WVST Radio. He created and produced and hosted the CIAA Report over there. He's currently the weekend sports anchor and reporter for CBS 6 in Richmond, Virginia, along with the man, the myth, the legend, Lane Casadani over there on Broad Street. I want to introduce to the people out there on Ballin VA, Mr. Sean Robertson. Sean, bro, I know you're busy, man. We appreciate you spending some time with us, man.
No, man, it's my pleasure to be on. Thank you for having me on today.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
We want to get some Richmond perspective from you, but first, we want to get a perspective of how it all started for you, man. You know, your love for sports, growing up in Petersburg. Did you play any sports? And just tell everybody, you know, your upbringing in Petersburg.
Well, I grew up in Petersburg, 5th Ward, South Dunlop Street. I wasn't that talented to play athletics at the high school level. There was a lot of great talent when I grew up. So, we played the pickup games, pickup football, 21 in basketball, stickball in the street, stuff like that. But my start in the media business actually began at Virginia State University. I started at the Virginia Statesman. I was a school's sports editor of the newspaper there for, I think, 2 years. Wrote up all the recaps of the games that I went to. Also was a columnist, did a few columns in the paper, which eventually led me to do some work in the sports information director's office. Got to give a shout out to Greg Goings. He gave me that opportunity. He's about to retire as SID at Bowie State after a long, successful career. So he gave me an opportunity to work under him, work under his wing, writing recaps, preview for CIAA football previews and their media guide. So was doing that. He also got me an opportunity to do public address announcements for the women's basketball games during the regular season. That eventually led me to get an internship at WVST, as you mentioned, the Source, the campus radio station at VSU. That ultimately led me to a paid position at the station. Not only was I doing sports, I was also an on-air personality. We call them DJs, whatever. So we did every shift: the morning block, the afternoon block, the drive time block, which was like 2 to 6. The evening show, we called it the evening cool out back then, 6 to 10. And then after putting music on the back burner, I was full-time sports, and in 2001 became the first full-time sports director at WVST. And then after 7 years there, left and became the weekend sports anchor at Channel 6 in Richmond, and currently is the only weekend sports anchor in the Richmond market.
Nice. Absolutely nice. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So we talked about it off air about some of the legends that have come out of there, and you just did it. You were just emceeing and speaking at the Hall of Fame in Petersburg. Yeah. So growing up, man, you grew up in the same era as me and Larry. We had some who's who names earlier. Just talk about some of the athletes, man, growing up in Petersburg that you were able to see, not only on the high school level, but college as well.
Well, in high school, I grew up with Mike Scott, Herbert Howard, Ace Montgomery. Those were guys that played on the football team. Marcus Lundy, they played multiple sports. Charlie Branch was a great wrestler during the time that I was at high school at Petersburg. There was a lot of great talent in that area. And then in the surrounding areas, I mean, in the mid-90s and early 90s at Matulka, you couldn't talk about basketball without talking about Harold Dean. He had a tremendous career. Matulka went on to go to UVA, 1,000 point scorer with the Cavaliers, top 3, top 5, I believe, all time in 3-point shooting and things of that nature. He was a part of the Elite 8 team in 95, along with Curtis Staples and Jason Williford and guys like that. I think Junior Burrow was on that team in 95. Let me think. I graduated in 93. So even before then, Yuri Barnes, a lot of people don't remember. That's something glass in the past.
Yeah, we know about that.
Yuri Barnes
to get him on the show.
We tried to get him on the show. Yeah, because I remember when I first moved to Virginia. I moved to Virginia in 91, and all I kept hearing about was Yuri Barnes. Of course, Kendrick and them had already left. It was Williford that just left.
Yeah.
And Williford was still there, but all you heard was Williford and Yuri Barnes the whole time. I was like, man, who is this Yuri Barnes guy, man?
Yuri Barnes was the truth at Manchester, and that was when
he was.
Manchester was in the old Central District.
Currently,
Manchester is in the Dominion District, but in the 90s, early 90s, Manchester was a part of the Central District. And Yuri Barnes was a load.
He was
for Manchester. He eventually went to UVA. He had a great career there. Monsanto Pope from out of Hopewell, who played for the Denver Broncos. A stud.
Yes, he was. Both sports too. He played both sports at Hopewell.
No question. So those are the guys that, like I said, in high school that I remembered. Marco Harrison, he graduated 2 years after I did, but he was a great talent in high school. Don Brooks was a great basketball player in high school. And then I mentioned a lot of the other guys from the other high schools, James Pelham from Hopewell, Reggie Williams, the late Malik Carter from Prince George, the Byerson brothers that played at Thomas Dale. All three eventually played at Union together. Brad, the oldest one, started at West Virginia. Then went to Virginia Union with his 2 younger brothers. Meadowbrook had some good talent. They won a state championship.
Chandler Evans and the boys.
Yeah, man.
Hopewell football team before, their great run, 2 and 3 years, 2 and 4 years, winning state championships, 2003.
Something like that. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
You had Lee Bujikowski, Jerry
He could sling it. He could sling it. Yeah.
So I'm dating myself with all these guys.
No, you with us, bro. You with us. You with us.
No, you right there.
But and I had a chance to, and also when talking with football, Chris Bird. Kid, great player.
You give me some names here, bro. Yes, sir.
That eventually also went to UVA, and then that Pat Manuel legacy at Matoka before they went to the Central District. They dominated I want to say it was the old South Side.
South Side District. Yep.
So that whole Tri-City area and was great talent. And then if when I was growing up, the big thing was the Fort Lee Christmas tournament. In the 90s down there at the old Fort Lee Fieldhouse before they moved it out. There was that was like the thing to do during the Christmas break was to go to that Fort Lee Christmas tournament because not only the area teams, Hopewell, Petersburg, Prince George, you had those teams north of the James that would come down and be a part of that tournament because they knew that was the marquee event in the winter break to kind of get you ready for district play and eventually the playoffs because you was going to get the best of the best at that tournament in Fort Lee for those 3 days.
Man, I feel like I'm talking to an almanac right now.
and real quick, Sean, he's the almanac, and you just came in and maybe dethroned him right now, bro. Because
he got me, man.
Because Larry knows everything, all sports, bro.
Man, those were some great times, man. In those early 90s when I was in high school, even after I had graduated high school, 94, 95, 96. That was still, like I said, Fort Lee Christmas tournament. That was still the thing to do at Christmas time. Was after you was with your family that next Thursday or Friday, whatever. You heading to Fort Lee, and that was before the restrictions were so strict.
Right.
You could just drive in there. You go to the field house. You hang with your boys. You see the ladies walking around, and then you got to see some great high school basketball. I miss those days, and I know in recent years they try to bring it back with the Tri-City.
Okay, I heard Classic, about that. Yeah,
rotating it around between Petersburg, Prince George, and Hopewell. and they're doing a good job of kind of bringing that back. But yeah, it'll never be what it was in the late 80s and the 90s with the head coaches there with Bill Lawson and Coach Littlepage,
man.
Coach Russell, Eddie Goss.
Yeah.
Forgot about Eddie Goss. Yeah.
Those names like that. Even Lancaster at Highland Springs when they would come down. I mean, it's just. I mean, the memories of those matchups with those teams are just they'll be with you for a long time.
I'm gonna ask you a question, and I see that you went down a list.
Yeah,
but you didn't mention the 26-0 Petersburg '92 team. They got knocked out by George Wilford, Quincy Quick, and Maurice Watkins and those boys.
I was
what did I talk about?
I forgot to mention. When you start naming names, the memory bank is. Maurice Watkins. That was a name I did when I mentioned Yuri. The next name I was going to think of was Maurice Watkins, great talent at Petersburg. He eventually went to UVA. Quincy Quick, know him. His brother Nate. Nate was probably as good a ball player as Quincy.
Okay.
At Peabody.
Yeah.
Peabody. Yep.
Yeah, Peabody. He was a great basketball player too. Eventually, went to the ministry. But yeah, his brother Quincy, great talent with that team. I'm trying to think of some other guys who was on that '92 team. Quincy, Watkins. Wow.
Yeah, they were loaded though. They were loaded.
Yeah, they were number one in the state.
Yeah,
until they got knocked out by George Wilf.
Yeah,
and that was
loaded.
That was an upset.
That was Parkaway and those guys.
Yeah,
and
that was probably Lawson's second best chance to win a state title. I want to say the '89 team that made it to the final.
Yes.
You think so?
And I can't. Okay. That was the Kenny Harris.
Kenny Harris, right?
They lost to Hampton, I think, that year. I think it was Hampton in the playoff.
I forgot which team that was.
It was at William and Mary. I remember watching it. It was at William and Mary. Yeah. I saw an old game of that. Yeah.
I forgot. I totally forgot. Kenny Harris, Hall of Famer at Petersburg a couple years ago. Yeah. That '89 team was probably the best chance. Yep. And then that '92 team with Watkins and Quick, and now you're gonna make me try to go back to an old yearbook and remember some names. And I'm looking, I'm like, oh, that's right, he was.
Yeah, that's right. You forgot about him. Yeah, but see, when you name it, like it's so many great players. You do to miss one or two players that because of the numbers. There's so many different players there.
I think they had 4 guys that was on that team that averaged double figures. And I just can't think of the other two.
Maurice was probably the star. Quincy was the, obviously the point. Like I said, Maurice went to UVA, and he probably, I think he went to, I want to say the medical field.
Yeah.
While he was at UVA, and he's done really well in that profession. But Maurice was the star of that. Yeah, and I was on Facebook like a couple hours before we came on, and the friends, the guys you would know, or it's people Maurice was one of the. He came up. Maurice was one of the names that came up. Yeah. But
that's dope. That's dope.
And they had and those rivalries with them in Manchester. I want to say that year, that '92 team. I want to say it was either that year or maybe a couple years after that. They played either Hopewell or Manchester like 4 or 5 times that year, and that's when. You played in the district final, the regional final. Both teams
would go,
or 4 teams would go into the state. So they played each other 2 in the regular season. You had the district final, the regional final, and I want to say they either played in a state playoff game, or that was it. But that was when you could. That's when the rivalries were really, really strong, because then you got to see them. Possibly multiple times,
3 or 4 times a year.
In the tournament, and not only in the regular season, but also in the playoffs, where you could end their season, moving forward. So the Petersburg, Manchester, Petersburg, Hopewell, that whole Tri-City. When Manchester was in the district, those were some good games, good battles between them teams.
What do you think about Petersburg sports right now? High school sports right now? What do you think the state of it?
Ooh, that's a tough one, being an alum from Petersburg.
Man, that's a tough one.
I don't want to sound like an old head, but the times when I was in school, and like I said, even when I was after I left, it's hard to replicate that.
Right.
There have been some moments where the football team has done well. When Remus James, head coach, when Remus was there, that's another great two-sport athlete in Petersburg, football and track. He led them to the playoffs a couple of times. Same thing with Mike Scott. He was a quarterback my senior year that got them to the playoffs when they played all road games that year. I'm assuming you guys remember the incident at Cameron Field. The gunshot basically wiped out their senior home schedule, which was their junior year in 91.
Yeah.
They go on 92. They play all the games on the road, make the playoffs, and I want to say the Huguenot got them in the playoffs that year in 92. So Mike was the quarterback of that team, went to Ferrum after leaving Petersburg. So you remember all of that talent that was in Petersburg growing up after after graduation. There's talent there, and definitely with Mike's son, Messiah Scott, who is, I want to say now the all-time passing leader at Petersburg High, 4-year starter with the Crimson Wave. He's going out of Western Carolina after graduation. Got his associates from Richard Bland as well. So he got the associates and the high school graduate diploma.
Nice.
So there's talent there. It's just, it's hard. It's not like, you could just go to Lee Park, or you can go to the Heights and play hoops, or you can go to Blandford and play hoops, or West Street off of Dunlop and play hoops. Usually in your neighborhood, there was a park. There was, at least two rims where you could play basketball, where you had a wide field and you could play football. It ain't like that anymore. I mean, I drove down East Warner Hill a few weeks ago. I grew up in East Warner Hill as well. And the last street we had this park kind of, it was, makeshift park. It had a full court basketball court. We had the wide field where we could play football out there, and it looked deserted. The rims are gone. It was as if there was never a basketball court there. That's terrible. And that used to be like the thing. I mean, we would make it like an event to go down there and just to play pickup games. Play 5-on-5. And if the next, if you lose, you out next, hey, let's bring another 5 in. Those days of, in a way, developing your game against guys in the neighborhood, toughening yourself, at that point, those days are gone, because, we are now in the age of social media. We're in the age of, PS5, PS4. I mean, even when we were growing up, we still, we had Sega's, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Atari. But we also went outside and hooped it up and like I said, made it kind of like an event. Like, okay, I gotta do better, because you don't know who's gonna be there, if we're gonna be embarrassed or not. Right. Those days are over, unfortunately. And in Petersburg, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to try the word I'm looking for. Get the guys motivated, to go to school, get them motivated to try out a sport. Like, again, going back to when I was in high school, most of those guys that played football played multiple sports. I think Mike played baseball. I remember a guy, Marcus London, we called him Tank. He played 2 sports, baseball. I think he was a wrestler too. We had some guys that played football and wrestled. It ain't like that anymore. The interest level in playing organized team sports is not there like it used to be. And I don't know if it's partially because the schools are handcuffed, or if there's no interest in playing. And that's sad, because when you would go to Cameron, or even the new field, the Andrew White Stadium, you would pack it, especially for in the basketball gym. When you saw Hopewell and Petersburg play, you couldn't get a ticket to go into either gym. And I think the last time I saw Petersburg Hopewell play at Petersburg, I know they moved it to a afternoon game because of some issues that were going on.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe half, maybe half full, no band. I mean, that was like a Friday night thing. You got your band in there to rock the house. You had a great crowd, a sellout crowd. You had two really good teams. You had two legendary coaches, and they made it an event. And I don't think that might be part of it as well. We don't make it a must-see thing because, we want to be in the house. We want to chill. We don't want to, go out. We don't want to spend money. And like I said, that's unfortunate at Petersburg because I know there's a lot of great talent in all sports, not just football and basketball, but baseball, softball, track, wrestling was big.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
And it's not like that anymore, unfortunately. And maybe we as natives of the city need to do better to I won't say push, but motivate, convince guys to go out and represent the city in a way where you can kind of shut some critics up to say, hey, Petersburg is not as bad as you think. Man, we got some talent that can come out of Petersburg and succeed at a high level. We just got to have those guys and ladies to come out and want to do it.
And I that was going to be my next question, Sean. Do you think you being in the media and you having that platform to possibly promote Petersburg, do you think that Tri-City area was overlooked? Because those Richmond teams were loaded back in the early 90s and mid 90s as well. And now, of course, you don't have much of the Tri-City area doing much. Well, Hopewell basketball is doing pretty, and football is doing pretty well too. But do you think that the Petersburg area is overshadowed by the Richmond area, but just because of just numbers and just because of talent?
I mean, I was, first thought, yes, but it's going to go back to the numbers. I mean, Petersburg probably had maybe 30 kids on the football roster, this past spring. And you look at a Highland Springs juggernaut, they probably had double that, maybe 50, 60 some kids on the roster. But it's about the interest at Highland Springs, and I love them to death. Covering them so many times.
I know you do.
The playoffs and the regular season and the state finals, they start that from almost like a grassroots area. They started from like the Pee Wee.
They do.
And from Glenn Lee. And they have those coaches who are on staff at Highland Springs to work with them at Glenn Lee and then build them through, bring them through.
They know who's coming. They know who's coming. Yeah.
And there's some schools south of the James that do that as well. Dinwiddie, I think, does that. Thomas Dale does that with Coach Tucker. But that's got to be the thing. It's starting them at a young age.
Right.
Whether it's I can't remember if Petersburg still does recreational sports, rec ball.
See, that's huge,
like they used to.
That's huge.
That's all they do in Richmond is rec, 7-on-7s, and they make it a point where those kids are playing rec ball. You're going into those 7-on-7 tournaments to get ready. And then, once you get to 8th grade and once you get to 9th grade, it's almost like you're a seasoned vet.
Yep.
You've played in, high profile 7-on-7 tournaments. You've been coached by those guys from a young age. So it's almost like, and Lawrence told me this on more than one occasion, it's to the point where, and also Kevin Tucker, when they get them from, I guess, middle school to JV to varsity, it's to a point where those guys are using the same, game plan offensively and defensively that we would use at the varsity level. So if we need to call up a kid from JV to varsity, it's an easy transition. It's like you don't miss a beat. What we run is what you've already run. So there should be no mistake.
Yeah, they know when they're coming. Yep.
Yeah, and Lauren is, these last 6-7 years at Highland Springs, it's like a well-oiled machine.
Yes.
And
All the players are interchangeable. Like they just change jersey. I mean, they change students. They get different jersey numbers, and they all look the same when they come in. It's like interchangeable. It's so nice to see.
And I think go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. No, you on. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I think it goes back to starting him at Glenn Lee. starting him in rec ball. It's like I
Yep.
said, when you got those coaches at Highland Springs that basically are there at rec ball,
Yep.
they can kind of see, okay, this guy has it. This guy, I see something at a young age. Let's kind of get him, moving him up the ladder. And Lauren has trust and faith in these guys that
coaches,
they know what they are looking for, or he knows those coaches will see what Lauren sees from afar.
Yep.
It's almost like Lauren is there with within
with the
that
coaches.
coach.
It's a system. And again, me and Larry talked about this. I don't know if we talked about it on camera or off camera, Larry, how that's how the Richmond area has progressed. They got better coaches and better systems. And you talked about the Highland Springs assistant coaches going to the little leagues and the rec leagues and finding that talent and grooming them into when they get to the high school level. And you named some great teams, and I think that might have been the issue back in the not discrediting the coaches that were back in the day, but a lot of times they get to the States and they would lose because of coaching, maybe one coaching move or maybe one play. It wasn't that much of a difference, but the 757 in the Northern Virginia area always got the credit for winning all those championships. It was maybe one or two plays and maybe coaching and things like that. But I'm gonna put you on the spot real quick though.
But real quick, the 757.
Go ahead.
They did have some talent.
And that's where I was gonna go. Like the best person I've ever seen play was from the 757, and it was Iverson and Alonzo Mourning. But I'm gonna put you on the spot because the best person I ever saw play in the Richmond area was Jonathan Hargett.
Oh yeah.
So I want to put you on the spot, bro. Like who was the best player you saw? Not even maybe when you were working, just like okay, yeah, he's different.
Who? With my own eyes, not on TV, but like me.
No. Dude, somebody you saw play in person, yeah.
Somebody I saw play in person. Any sport or just
any sport.
See, off the top, I would have said Mike Robinson, but I never saw him in person.
He's talking about the quarterback from Verona who played at Penn State. Yep. He was different. Me and Larry, man, it's funny how me and Larry were just talking about this. They should have won back-to-back state championships. And we feel so bad for that squad because they lost to C.D. Hilton. Was it C.D. Hilton both times, Larry? I think it was. Wasn't it?
Yeah. They were
up 28-7. They blew. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Mike Robinson was different. He was a different guy. Man.
I heard the stories about Mike. I heard the stories about Macho Harris.
Macho Harris was different too.
Out of Highland Springs.
I saw him play in person.
The best person. Yeah. Man, there were some good ones.
I know you've seen a lot.
Probably recently in high school was probably Frank.
Frank Mason. That's a great answer. There's no wrong answer. That's great. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah.
Frank probably in high school. That year they lost to I want to say Hampton in the final. That with the kid that went to NC State.
Cat Barber.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they were 20. I want to say it was either 27-0 or 28-0.
Oh man.
Yeah, he put on a show that year. They
effortless, man. He was oh my goodness.
If he had some help,
right,
or another guy, they would have won the state title that night. And to see that gym, the Siegel Center completely filled. And was
I was there.
It was like 90% Petersburg fans, really.
Let me write to that to see it filled primarily because of Petersburg. That kind of like made me feel really, really special because they're here to see the Crimson Wave. All of that, some of the negative, connotations about Petersburg, and y'all are here to see the Crimson Wave.
Yep.
Yes.
Try to win a state title that hadn't been done since the Moses era. It came up a little bit short that year, but Frank put on.
Frank. That's a fair answer.
He's up there. He's up there. I would say Megan Walker.
I was gonna say that too. Yeah, she was.
Game against Lake Taylor.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the state final, her last game with Gino.
Kingsport.
Kingsport. At Siegel Center, right?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yes.
And she scored.
She took over that game, right?
She scored the last 16. For Monacan to win their third straight, finished undefeated. I think they won like 51 straight.
Yep, something like that.
Yeah, they finished 30-0 that year.
Yeah. I would say, for high school football.
Shout out to Frank and shout out to Meg Walker.
Yeah, that's two quality answers right there.
I would probably say no one season was any better. And I'm probably going to forget one, but Trey Henderson's junior year of 2019 is probably right up there.
Holwell running back?
Yeah, it's probably
that man,
right
that
up there.
A beast too. He's a beast.
Like that one season was probably right up there with some of the best one season.
Yep.
Thank you.
And just to give everybody an indication, he's at Ohio State right now fighting for a starting position. So that
might get one. The way
he might start. True freshman.
He could start opening week in September. But I want to say it was 53 rushing touchdowns, and he had it was 53 total touchdowns, and he threw one to give him 54 and have the record. And I saw him against Prince George. It was midseason. They were undefeated. Prince George had just came off a big win, and I think they had one loss. And this was going to be their opportunity to be in the region map. This was their opportunity to knock off one of the big boys. And Trey scored 6 touchdowns, and I want to see
yes,
3 different ways: rushing, receiving.
He did everything,
and he had a touchdown on a fake punt that night.
Yeah, he was
everything.
And I told people that year I never saw him get caught from behind.
Never
that year.
It's crazy because when you talk about running backs, the Richmond area, I think is underrated when it comes to running backs because you talk about all those Lee Davis running backs. You talk about all those L.C. Bird running backs. I'm talking about like the early and mid 90s when I was living there.
Bird and Thomas Dale, yeah.
Bird and Ken Oxendine and Vineyard. Oh my God, Oxendine was the beast in high school, man.
Boogie Henderson in the late 80s.
Oh yes, Henderson. Oh yeah, with Huguenot. Oh my goodness, yeah.
No, Boogie went to Thomas Dale.
I'm sorry, Thomas Dale. You're right, Thomas Dale. Thomas Dale.
And then he went to play
Carolina, right? Yep, played at Green Bay, I think. Yep,
won a Super Bowl.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Yeah, but the legacy of
shout out to Boogie.
Yeah, the legacy of L.C. Bird running backs that I got to cover. Robertson, who had the record.
Oh, we were talking about Robertson. Yeah.
Let's stop right there.
Robertson was a beast, bro.
Let's stop right there. What that kid did in the postseason that year, have you ever seen anything that he did the way he ran for that postseason that year? It was like that he ran like in 3 or 4 games. He ran for a whole season in 3 or 4 games.
I want to say it was over 1,100 yards.
Yes, in 3 games.
In that playoff run, and he had the record. I want to say it was the single game postseason record.
I think so.
They went up to Oakton.
Oakton.
Yeah, and he ran for 430,
something like that.
Yeah,
and that's in one game, folks. That's crazy. Yeah,
and the sad thing was that's all Dale did. They handed it off.
They handed it off to him and let him run.
You knew he was going to get the ball. He was going to be the offense, and they still couldn't stop him that day.
They still couldn't stop him.
Ran for 437. Then you had, like I said, Robertson. You had Earl Hughes.
I forgot about Hughes. Yaki Johnson.
Yaki Johnson. But Earl was special because Earl could do it again, rushing between the tackles. Kid his size could still run between the tackles like he did. Receiving and special teams. He was that extra dimension that Bird needed that year. I want to say, was that Tuscarora or that might have been Stonebridge? I can't remember.
I want to say it's Tuscarora.
Tuscarora, I think it was.
Yeah, because I think it was that year. It snowed, it rained, and then it was sunny, and he had like a big special teams play that led to the Bird winning the state title. But yeah, that lineage of running backs from Thomas Dale. Even Hopewell has some great running backs. Ronnie Walker before Trey. Ronnie Walker, great running back as well. Jared Brown, that state championship team of 03.
Yep. Jared Brown was nice.
Great running back that also could do things receiving and on special teams. I'm trying to think of some other ones.
You throwing them out there.
You're throwing them out there, bro. It's guys that we forgot about. They're just coming back. You know what I mean? That's great. This is why this is great, man.
And while we was on that Highland Springs thing, and I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut across you.
No, go ahead.
How long do you think Lauren Johnson keeps this thing going?
And that's a great question. Everybody wants to know that answer.
I think as long as Lauren Johnson wants to stay at Highland Springs. The running joke at Highland Springs has been, once his sons graduate, I think he will be done. That's the running joke. Once they've graduated, and he's got a really good. His oldest son is getting, I think the last time we spoke was the week of the state title game. I think he told me Braylon has 13 or 14 different offers right now.
Okay.
But he said his youngest one could be the better of the two. So watch
and they
out.
both attend the school?
Yeah. Braylon played on this past spring. He was on the team, and I want to say the youngest will be a freshman this upcoming year.
Okay.
I believe so.
He's got at least 4 years, everybody. So relax.
So,
he'll be there for at least 4 more years.
You heard it here on Ballin.
You heard it here first.
So the running joke was, let me get my kids, let me get my sons through, and let me coach them. That was his thing. He wanted to coach.
Yeah,
his two boys.
That's deep.
And he said once he had that opportunity, he said that might be it. So you're thinking if that's 4, he's been there since 2008. So this would be, if my math is right, this was his 12th season.
So he'll be there at least 16,
8,
17
9,
years.
10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. This was his 13th year. So it would be close to 20 at Highland Springs if it comes true, if he decides, if he holds up his word, or the joke that if once his sons graduate, that he would call it. So that would be 17, 18 years at Highland Springs. And this was another thing. When he first started there, getting to the playoffs and everything, I just noticed this leading up to the state final. He was 1-4 in the playoffs.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you couldn't beat Hermitage or Bird.
Oh, you mean before they made that run?
Before the run, he was 1-4 in the playoffs, and after that, before the loss to Stonebridge, he went 22-1 just in the playoffs with those 4 state championships. That was his playoff record. His playoff record at Highland Springs, I think it's now 23-6. I believe is his record in the playoffs. Just in the playoffs.
Just in the playoffs.
Lauren Johnson, man.
23-6
has changed the whole game in the Richmond area. He's made coaches you see Coach Bedwell over at Hermitage. I'm sure he's going to turn that program around, but he's set the bar for the Richmond area in football for sure.
Yeah, because you think about that's how they do it in Florida. They start in little league and they work their way up. And he brought that here, which we hadn't seen before.
Exactly. He did.
No question.
Let me ask you this, man. You talked about Lauren Johnson. Your most, and you've been in the game for a little while. The most impactful interview you've had, and in terms of you just left that interview feeling something. You know what I mean? You've done a lot of interviews, and you don't have to pick one. It could be a couple, but just the most impactful interview you've had so far in your career.
Oh man, there was one that was off the radar about a guy who he had some physical disabilities growing up, and after he was, I don't want to say healed, but after he recuperated and overcame those disabilities, he wanted to do something for the children that were basically in his position growing up. So he basically ran cross country, raising money for children who didn't have insurance and that were struggling to help them out in that way. And I forget the nickname that he gave him, that was given to him. God, I forget his name, but he basically did this not only in the United States, but he did this around the world.
Wow.
Just running across
Just to raise money.
Just to raise money. And when when I sat down and talked to him, I was like, okay, this is gonna be like a weird story. And then listening to it, I was like, wow. And then an old friend of mine, Connie Holloman, and for those, her husband is Jason Holloman III. For those who in the Petersburg area, he used to have Jason 3, the clothing company, his clothing store, his clothing line. She saw him like at a gas station in Prince George, and she welcomed him into their home. Her, I want to say, I don't know if it's a godson, but it's a young man that she was raising. He's dealing with some issues. He was dealing with some issues at the time. So this guy and her Connie's relative that she was help raising, they connected. They had a bond together. And so that kind of like, got him more motivated to, continue this trek. And I think he started in like Washington State, and he ran cross country all the way through. I think his last stop was Philadelphia. And he ran cross country, stopping along the way, things of that nature. That was an impactful story that I was like, wow, that was, this guy is, he wanted to make a difference, because somebody I think made a difference in his life to help him overcome his physical disabilities and physical ailments. And he wanted to do that for the other children and children across the world that are dealing with these same type of issues. So that was one that kind of like was like, wow. And then to have a friend of mine, help him along the way, that was like, that was pretty cool to do that. I just did a story recently with Ayanna Rogers, the girls basketball player at Highland Springs, who had a spinal it was almost like stenosis, where she had to basically have like serious spinal surgery at like age 13, because it was like a really bad curvature in her spine at a young age, while she also tore her ACL twice, the same knee twice.
Wow.
And within a couple of years, recoup, became all state.
Wow. Okay.
Won a state championship with Highland Springs this past March of 2020. They were co-champs with Princess Anne. They were going to meet in the final, but COVID shut it down, so they never got to play on the court. So they were declared co-champions. So she won a state championship ring with Highland Springs. Trying to think, there was just those two like off the top that I remember.
Those are deep, man. Both of those are deep.
Was actually a female wrestler from Highland Springs. She was the only female wrestler on the team. That had some good wrestlers. Christian White, who played football at Highland Springs and went to Howard. I believe. That was a really inspirational story, because she didn't ask any quarter, she didn't give any quarter, and Coach Gore, who was the wrestling coach at Highland Springs, he coached her like he was coaching a dude. And she relished that. She did not want to be treated any differently because she was a girl. And I thought that was a cool story. And I think she, in her weight class, as far as females was concerned, she was undefeated against females in her weight class.
Good job.
And I couldn't remember if she won like a state championship in that weight class. I never got a chance to didn't get an opportunity to talk to Coach Gore about that. But then you got Daryl Green raising money for his Youth Life Foundation for at-risk children in the Richmond area. Trying to think.
Any bucket list interviews that you checked off, you know what I'm saying, along the way?
Well, I always wanted to interview Kobe before he had passed. But that unfortunately will not happen. Since I'm a big wrestling fan, I've always wanted to interview Ric Flair.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm crossing my fingers that will happen soon. And that's actually, since I've been doing this, I've had a chance, when some of the wrestlers would come to the Diamond, we would interview a few of them.
Right.
The coolest one I probably interviewed was when I was with the Petersburg Generals and Jerry the King Lawler came to Petersburg.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And he threw out the first pitch at the Generals game, and we actually had him on air when because we worked an agreement while I was at Virginia State to air the Petersburg General games on WVST.
Yep.
And so he came on, and we thought, maybe an inning or a half inning, and we just, shoot the breeze and everything like that. It actually turned out to be a 30-minute interview.
Dang, nice, bro.
Nice.
Nice.
With the King. And we just talked about, him traveling across the country, doing that, doing the first pitches and, working with WWE and his career, and when he beat Kurt Hennig and wrestling Kerry Von Erich in Texas and in Tennessee, and just his legacy in Memphis, the Andy Kaufman thing. So that was cool that he just, and then afterwards we kind of talked. He was like, man, he knew his stuff. He knew about the territories and he knew his dates and stuff like that. I was like,
yeah.
But just, like I said, thinking it was going to be like a half inning or maybe an inning, and it turned out to be 30 minutes. And I was like, wow. And he didn't look like he wanted to. He like, oh man, I'm tired. Or he
kept going.
We kept going. Yeah. So that was cool to sit and talk, shoot the breeze with the King. But yeah, I've interviewed Jimmy Snooker before he passed.
Oh wow.
Ted DiBiase, George Animal Steele before he passed.
Wow. That's all my guys right there.
Yeah. Those are throwbacks.
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to think.
That's WWF right there, bro.
I think Bret Hart came to Richmond, and I think I got him on air.
The Hitman,
yeah. I think we got him on air saying the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. I think I gotta go back and look at that.
That's dope. That's nice. That's nice.
But yeah, that was well, on the bucket list, the top one now would be Flair. If I can get 5 minutes with Flair, it would be just like a promo from Mid Atlantic. Talk about his days coming to the Coliseum. That would be the top one.
That would be dope.
I was going to switch it to talk with some high school basketball.
Okay.
Do you think the private school basketball has changed the way we look at things in the past 10 years with in the Richmond area?
Meaning what exactly?
Well, before it was always up until maybe 2010, it was always the public schools which is dominated. You might have a Benedictine that may pop up here and there. And then the landscape just changed, and all of a sudden you start having, Benedictine, and you have Trinity, and you have some of these other schools that's coming out of,
Collegiate
and St. Chris. Yeah.
St. Chris, yeah. With Nick Sherrod, yeah.
Yeah.
And Petrie also, who
Petrie
went to Lafayette. I mean, you could probably say that. I mean, maybe, it was their cycle. That 2010 period was probably that cycle for the private schools to have a great run. You think about just with Trinity alone in that period, you got Jacobs, Baycott, Coleman. And if I'm right, before Coach Hamlin retired, he coached the last 4 Metro Players of the Year. Coleman won it twice, Baycott, and then also Jacobs. So Benedictine, for a long time was kind of like the standard bearer. Man,
that's all I knew. That's all I knew when I moved to Virginia was Benedictine.
That was the standard bearer. You had the Burgess brothers.
Yep.
You had Ed Davis.
Yep.
You had Benajay before he
Benajay. Forgot about him. You
had Benajay there. So you had great talent at Benedictine, but then, they decided, after graduation, they go on and, go and have great careers in the collegiate ranks. And then I guess, their cycle of excellence kind of transferred to now Trinity, where now they are able to get those, get some talent at the right time, blended together. Like I said, those 3, and they had some other great talent around them. But when you thought of Trinity in that period, those were like the names that immediately stood out. Collegiate also with their head coach, and Lord, I'm gonna be Dale Harris. I was gonna say
Dale
that name
Harris.
escaped me, but Dale Harris, has done a lot in this area, AAU level, and and he's got some. He has. Oh, what was the kid that just went? Oh man.
Well, recently
he went to Northwestern, right?
Yes.
Robbie Barron.
Yes.
Barron. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's got some D1. He's got some kids that's gone to D1, Power 5 D1, not just mid-major, Power 5 D1. And then with St. Chris, I mentioned Petrie. I mentioned Nick Sherrod,
Rodney Williams, Drexel.
Yep. So it's just this area it's all about cycles to me. It's all about this is that period 2010 to now. That was a cycle where those four, probably led by Trinity, because they won a state championship during that cycle. And they went to, I want to say 3 or 4 Final Fours in that period too. And we just did the story on Hamlin. When I think it was 4 Final Fours, state final. It all came together during that period for at least Trinity and those other private schools, that they got some great talent to come in. Some great coaching with Hamlin and also Harris. And the name escapes me, is St. Chris. I see him all the time, and I can't.
Yeah, me too. Sorry about that. Yeah,
and Stephen Lewis, the assistant coach over there, and kind of like the SID, and I could see him all day, and
right,
I cannot. Yeah,
me too.
But Benedictine has had the issue. I won't say an issue, but I guess the concern is that they have had multiple coaches.
Church
McLoon
came in.
I think it was McLoon was there when I first started at 6. He was there, and that's kind of when Benedictine was still there.
Right.
Then Blackwell was there for a few years, then left, came back. So trying to find that consistency. I know they got a Benedictine, a grad, and his name escapes me as well. Trying to build it back up, but But McLoon, when I was there, he was kind of like the guy that's kind of. And again, he had the players there as well, and it all came together at that particular time. But I think it's just this was just the right period at the right time for those private schools to have some great talent and succeed. And Trinity really took advantage of that with all of that talent they had over there.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it had to do with the realignment of the VHSL too. That's about the time where they realigned and they put it in the 6 divisions, and a lot of kids in the Richmond area were looking to go to get to that higher level and play against better competition. But I know you got to run. You got to do the show later on tonight, right?
I went to Redskins camp.
You did? Okay.
Washington
football team. Yeah,
the Washington football team. Their first practice of the offseason.
How'd they look? How they look out there?
They didn't have pads.
Right.
I saw a lot of energy. For it to be a voluntary practice, to have 86 of 90 guys on your active roster present and practicing, I think speaks a lot for what Ron Rivera is trying to, achieve there. And I think the guys are buying to what he is selling. I think with the additions that they brought in with Fitzpatrick, Curtis Samuel, Humphreys, William Jackson in the secondary. It's not those big names like these top tier additions. Maybe Samuel, top 10 receiver, 15 receiver, but they filled a position of need. Samuel they needed to fill the receiver spot opposite of Terry McLaurin, Pro Bowl receiver, but he was basically a one-man operation in that position last year. Samuel will definitely help them take the top off the defense. That'll help out McLaurin underneath. It'll help out, I believe, Logan Thomas at the tight end position as well. Adam Humphreys, I think, could be an addition as a slot man over Steven Sims, who was one of 4 that did not come. And I mean, I know it's voluntary and everything like that. And I said this on an earlier interview. I know it's not voluntary. I know it's not, it was voluntary, but in that position, when you knew they brought in a couple of receivers and, to basically take your spot, I think on day one, you want to be there. To kind of work out with the new quarterback.
You think?
But he might have had a family reason as to why he couldn't. Totally understand if that's the case. But that gives Humphreys extra reps, and he's got that past relationship with Fitzpatrick in Tampa Bay, so they can kind of work that out. But it gives Samuels some extra reps, and those guys, those young guys, that are coming back. Kelvin Harmon from NC State off of injury. Gandy Golden from Liberty gives him extra reps. Cam Sims, who seemed like he was coming on late last year, seemed like, he was building a little bit of a good chemistry with Fitzpatrick today on the first day of practice, is giving those guys extra reps that now Sims is going to be playing catch up with a little bit. Hopefully he does come back either this session or the next session next week. But a guy like Steven Sims, to me, I think he needed to be there, even though it was voluntary, especially because he was a starter at a point last year and didn't really do what they wanted him to do in that position. That's why they went out and got Samuel. That's why they went out and got Humphrey, and hopefully one of those young guys, like I said, Gandy Golden or Harmon or Sims, who knows? They could be that 4th receiver to help out Fitzpatrick and those guys. Kyle Allen looked good coming back from injury. Landon Collins also back from a torn Achilles. I did not see any noticeable limp from either one of those guys today. So I think they're ahead of schedule. It'll be interesting. I think Fitzpatrick is his job to lose. And you got Allen and Heineke battling for the backup spot, but I think, you bring him in for that, $10 million deal. I think he's going to be the starter unless he falls flat on his face.
For sure.
In camp, I think he's going to be the starter. And I think that veteran leadership is something that Rivera desperately needed. And I think stability. I mean, you had it with Alex Smith last year, but you just didn't know if he was healthy enough to do it, to be on the field. And I think with Fitzpatrick, I don't think that's going to be an issue as far as health is concerned. He's been relatively healthy his entire career. He's just been bounced around from team to team. And Rivera says something like very interesting, like when he was at Carolina, they relied heavily on the athletic ability of Cam Newton.
Right.
And he said something like that kind of raised a few eyebrows. I can't remember the exact quote, but I'm paraphrasing by basically saying, we don't feel like we have to rely so much on the quarterback position, because he feels they have the weapons around him that can support his play. So I think, like I said, they want those big money splashes, with free agents. I think they were reasonable deals. They weren't backbreaking deals, but like I said, they were positions of need that Washington had to get based on last year's performance. 7-9, win the division, probably gave Tampa the toughest game in the run.
They did.
In the playoffs. And I think that taste, albeit it was a losing record, that taste, I think, stuck with a lot of those guys. And I think that might have been one of the reasons why it was so much participation at this OTA today, was because we got a taste. We kind of see what Rivera's talking about, and getting to that game last year and going toe to toe with Tampa, saying, maybe we're not that far off.
Right.
And then those additions could maybe get us, can we go 9-8, 10-7, even with that difficult schedule? And if we get a quarterback that does not make the big mistake, and we know Fitzpatrick in years past, he had a tendency to make the big mistake. Maybe he doesn't, maybe he doesn't take as many risks and many chances this year with Washington, because he's playing for, maybe playing for another contract. It's only a 1-year deal. Sure. And he's got 2 young guys behind him, one who got a 2-year deal this offseason, on one start. So maybe, that is, he's got to look over his shoulder, maybe not taking as many unnecessary chances in a key spot as he would have if he had a more security in his back pocket.
Yeah, I think that situation with Tua taught him a lot.
Mm-hmm.
With him starting off that way and then they just kind of threw Tua in there, because they drafted him. And I think that situation kind of, like you said, it's going to kind of have him maybe not as pressed as much and maybe be a little bit more disciplined than he was before.
And and that might help him this go around because he doesn't have like a number one draft pick.
Right.
Hovering over his shoulder. You got Kyle Allen, he's a journeyman, even though he knows Ron Rivera from his time in Carolina, as well as Heineke. But this ain't the franchise quarterback.
Right.
He may play more loose, more comfortable, not saying, okay, Tua is over my shoulder. We drafted him for a reason. We drafted him to be the guy. And you're just basically that caretaker, that placeholder right now. I think Washington's basically saying, you're our guy.
Right.
So let's see how you play being the guy and not having to worry about having a franchise guy behind you. He doesn't have that in Washington. So let's see if that helps him this year as opposed to last year where he played well, but maybe it was almost like I gotta look to see if Flores is gonna take me out, and eventually he did. And I think the team unraveled because of the front office decision to force Flores to make the move to Tua as opposed to keeping Fitzpatrick in that spot.
And it's all that and all that money involved with Tua. I mean, the first round pick, you got to play. I mean, there's no point. I mean, there's no choice but not to play him in that situation.
Yeah, because that you drafted him for a reason. You drafted him because you thought he was going to be your franchise guy. But kind of like with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, Fitzpatrick threw a monkey wrench.
Yep.
You go, what was it, 5-2 to start the year with Fitzpatrick as a starter? It was like, okay, what do we do? Do we play him the rest of the year to see if we can make the playoffs, or when do we play our franchise guy? Yeah,
for sure.
And I think the timing of it was way off. I mean, if you lose 2 or 3 in a row, okay, then you play your rookie, not when they're battling for first place, or I think we're in first place at the time of the move. That's not when you make that decision.
That was a rookie mistake as a new coach. I think a veteran coach wouldn't have done that.
Well, I don't know if it was necessarily all on Flores.
Right. It was
front office.
Front office made front office.
Downhill.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that a veteran head coach wouldn't have succumbed to that type of pressure.
Right.
You would hope.
You're right. You would hope not. Right. Somebody like a Belichick or somebody like that wouldn't fly.
Well, definitely a coach with Super Bowl cachet.
Right.
Maybe
that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah. If he doesn't have 6 rings, let's say he's a consistent playoff participant. He won a ring. Yeah, he probably doesn't say, "Hey, you got to play. You got to play the rookie." No, we got him in that position for a reason. So let's trust our coach. Let's trust his gut to see whether or not we play him now, or let's see if the wheels do fall off, then we make that move.
Right.
And I think the timing with Miami making that move was totally off. And I think it probably fractured the locker room.
It did.
Because there were some guys that wanted to play for Fitzpatrick. And it wasn't nothing personal against Tua.
Right.
But the front office.
I mean, they there to win, just like everybody else. You know what I mean?
Now league.
Right.
You don't know what's going to happen from year to year.
Yeah, the front office made that locker room divided between.
So that's probably why Fitzpatrick left. Basically.
Oh, no question. I mean, he knew once he got put on the COVID list.
Right. Yep.
Right. Tua became the starter. At that point, he knew he wasn't coming back.
Right.
Basically, that was like, the writing's on the wall. We got to go with Tua. I mean, because now, if you go back and start Fitzpatrick this season,
right,
what does that say about drafting Tua in the first place?
Right.
So he had no choice but to leave. And like I said, with Washington, it's almost like a prove it to me, prove it to me year. But we're giving you almost like the luxury of, again, we don't have a franchise quarterback in that building. So maybe, maybe you play a little loose. Maybe not too loose throwing the football, but just knowing you got that confidence that we're not going to string you along and say, hey, we got what's his name behind you, waiting with the clipboard, waiting for that opportunity for you to slip up.
Really.
It's no disrespect to Kyle Allen, Taylor Heineke. I mean, Heineke, it was Heineke mania in DC in that playoff game, but can he do that for 16 games? Can he do that for 1 year? When you got a guy, even though he's bounced around, he's shown he can play a 16-game schedule. He's seen just about every defense there is. But again, but there have been some spots where he had pressed, maybe because of who was behind him, maybe because of the coaching staff, things of that nature.
That's a good point. He doesn't have much to look behind now. He can be relaxed.
I think Rivera will. I think he will make it. I won't say easier. He will make him more comfortable. I think in this situation. I think so.
Picking it off of COVID, how did COVID-19 change the way you cover sports this year?
We talked about that today.
Good question, bro.
It's night and day. We wouldn't be doing this right now.
Right.
For sure. We'd be meeting in the studio somewhere.
If there was no COVID, we wouldn't be on Zoom doing this. Yes, not at all. I mean,
that's very true.
We were talking about that today at OTAs. If this was 2019, there would be more leniency in shooting a practice. Right. There would be more movement going from field to field, to shoot things. We were basically stationed on one field, from end zone to end zone, and that's all. That was all our space. We couldn't go to the other field and get good shots, good close-ups of the defense. They were on that other field, and we were basically in front of the offense the entire time. And we had to shoot, cross the field like 250 yards, 350 yards to shoot the defense. All post-game interviews, Zoom, all practice, after practice interviews, moving forward, probably until maybe the start of the season, we'll see, have been on Zoom. I mean, how we did sports during the pandemic, totally different. I mean, without Zoom, I don't know how we would have been able to do a lot of these interviews.
That's true.
Because, for a while, they, the powers that be didn't want us to do in-person interviews.
Right.
It had to be on computer.
Wow.
And so, we trying to figure out how do we do Zoom? What is this Zoom thing? I wish I could bought stock.
Yeah, me too. I didn't know anything about Zoom until last year.
Man, we all.
Oh man, we should have bought some stock on Zoom.
If I would have bought at the lowest rate, man, I would have quit.
For sure.
I'll be doing this on a regular basis.
For sure.
But I mean, Zoom and all of these other. There was another one.
Team. Is it Teams?
Oh man, I forgot. There's another one. But I mean, they have been a godsend because we wouldn't have been able to do half of the interviews that we did in the heart of the pandemic when it was at nearly basically its apex. I mean, like I interviewed Dave Sims. He's a friend of mine on Facebook, and he's a friend of mine for a while. He's a play-by-play voice.
Oh yeah,
play-by-play voice.
He's been on ESPN.
He's a TV play-by-play voice of the Seattle Mariners. He's the only African American TV play-by-play man on Major League Baseball.
Awesome.
And he was in New York when we did the first interview last summer. If there was no Zoom, I mean, it would have been a phoner. That would have been like our last resort. We're gonna say, voice of Dave Sims, and covering up with some Seattle Mariners video. At least, with Zoom, we got to see who I am talking with.
That's true.
So Zoom completely changed, and the other, the other websites that allows video chatting, video conferencing, that completely has changed how we do sports. And I think it will be this way moving forward. I would be shocked if the NFL allows us to conduct interviews on the field,
right,
like we did in the past in scrums,
right,
getting players off the field, like, for training camp. I would be shocked if they do that this summer. Next summer, I'd be less shocked, but this summer I would be shocked if they did. I mean, even for like college basketball, I was talking with the SIDs for VSU and Richmond, and even the coaches. Road games, before Zoom, we would just, get the highlights off the TV, and there was no chance of talking to Mike Rhodes or Chris Mooney after the game for a road game. But with the advent of Zoom, and like I said, the video conferencing websites, we got to talk to both coaches after every road game this season, regardless. Home games, that was different. We didn't have that one-on-one interaction or the in-person interaction after a game to kind of see their body language, see it in person as opposed to how we are conducting this podcast right now. So that might have been that's a drawback. You don't have that close interaction that we did in the past. Right. But I think one of the big positives for us in the media, especially, is the fact that we can do a press conference or a post-game interview whenever and still maintain that relationship with the coaches and the players on the road, as in the past, if that school didn't set up a post-game presser and didn't record it and then send it to us, we would be screwed. Zoom, it was instant, and then allows us to record it. I mean, that's like, Zoom and WeTransfer, those should have been the two. Yeah,
WeTransfer, that's what it was.
The two stocks I should have put some money in.
we all should have put some stock into that.
Millionaire.
Oh my goodness, we missed that one.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
But that has really completely changed the landscape of how we do sports, I think. And I think Zoom is going to be with us, and these video conference sites, they're going to be with us for a long time to come.
That's good. I wanted to piggyback off of, you said you were speaking of the VCU coaches of Coach Rhodes and Chris Mooney. Mm-hmm. With everything that's going on with the NCAA, with this big shakeup, we'll be now one to kind of get your opinion on this. Do you think more of our local talent in sports, maybe stay closer to home with everything that's going on with college sports? You think we had a chance to keep some of our local talent, not just VCU and Richmond, UVA and Tech and so forth and so forth? What's your opinion on that?
I think they can if the athlete wants to stay close to home.
Right.
Okay.
The coaches can't make them stay.
Right.
Okay.
If it's, we always joke with them, and some actually, say it's true, but some won't admit it. It's kind of like, you're the pretty girl in high school. And all of the guys are waiting. All the guys are getting ready to ask you.
I know where you go.
Tell them.
Yes.
And they see Alabama. They see LSU. They see Oklahoma. They see Oregon. They see Florida State. They see Notre Dame. All great schools. All probably have great academic programs.
All right.
But selfishly, we want those guys. I can say for football, Gilliam's, Harmon's, Jones, Parker stays. He's going to stay at Tech. But they're going, Oklahoma, Boston College.
Yep.
Let's see, who was another one?
We can go down the list with
Bo Kite going with Army, but that was for a personal reason. Totally understand why he wanted to do that. But selfishly, you want to see these guys stay because you cover them for 3, 4, 5 years. maybe in JV all the way up, and you want to see them excel either at Tech or UVA. But the other thing could be those schools don't go out and recruit the players. It's a two-way street.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
As much as that kid wants to stay in state possibly,
Mm-hmm.
and wants to play for, Tech or UVA, Hampton, Norfolk State, if you want to go the HBCU route,
Right.
those schools got to show the same amount of attention as that athlete giving them. And if they don't, why would I want to stay?
Right.
If they're not gonna show that attention to me.
Good point.
That's a
So
great point.
I mean, so as much as like I said, as much as we love for them to stay, and I mean, I was talking to some people about the whole with trying to see if Baycott and Henry Coleman, who transferred from Duke.
Yep. They were trying to call
And
UVC.
go
They
to,
come to VCU, Richmond.
I was thinking,
Everybody was thinking that. Hope they come to VCU or Richmond, right?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, because when they were at Trinity, they were obviously recruited by VCU. They were at VCU games. I saw them in person myself. So you're thinking, hey, it's a possibility that if they're thinking about transferring, hey, if you got a scholarship offer, if you got a scholarship opening, why not take a chance, take a fly out to gauge their interest? But it's a two-way street. If the player doesn't want to stay, the coach can't make him stay.
Right.
But if the player does want to stay, and he still wants to stay in state, and that school ain't gonna show him no love, that player can't make that coach show me any love.
Yeah, exactly. It's a two-way street for sure.
It's a two-way street. So
Definitely two-way street.
I mean, we can go down a list of a lot of guys who we thought should have stayed.
Right. Absolutely.
But left.
A lot of kids should have stayed. Right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yes.
Yep.
But there's so many scholarships available, and there's probably way too much talent in this area for all of them to kind of be spread out. And then also, you think about it, how many Division I schools are in the state of Virginia? I mean, Power 5, there are only 2.
Virginia Tech. That's it.
Tech, right.
And if you want to count, I'm just talking about football.
Right. Football. Right.
Football, there's only 2.
Right.
And if you want to count Norfolk State and Hampton, that they're 1 AA.
1 AA. You got ODU.
And JMU.
JMU.
Dominion,
Yep.
William and Mary, Richmond.
Yep.
But there are only 2 Power 5 state schools.
Right.
And that's a little bit of a quandary, because it's like, well,
you can't get everybody. Yeah.
Can't get everybody. So you're going to have that talent going elsewhere. And, talking to one player who I like, the whole media term will remain anonymous.
Anonymous, right.
Yes.
That was one of the first things he had told me. I was like, what made you decide to go there? Did you ever think about going in state or staying in state? And his first thing was, didn't get the offer.
They didn't recruit me. Yeah.
And that happens a lot.
A lot.
And I didn't mean to cut across you, but when you said that kind of hit home, because there was a couple of basketball players that played in this area, and like I said, I'm gonna leave them nameless.
Yeah,
but they went to some local schools around here, and they had some history, and the coaches chose not to recruit them. And then, like you said, that they get upset when these kids go elsewhere. Out of the state, when you right here in your own backyard. I know Frank Beamer did a good job when he brought a lot of talent to Virginia Tech, just funnel it down. But for whatever reason, some of these other schools, football and basketball, they just don't want to give them that offer, and I don't understand why.
Let's throw Virginia in, and I'm not going to throw them under the bus, but let's say when Bronco first came to Virginia.
That was the red flag on him.
After Mike London, he's a West Coast guy. He's been at BYU for so long.
Right.
And his thing is not just about the state of Utah.
Right.
It's BYU's now a national brand.
Yes.
We're going to get guys from across the country to come to Provo.
Right.
And play for BYU. But it's also it's almost it's a certain type of player that he has to recruit to go to Brigham Young.
Yes.
Right.
And now he had to change his mentality of going from this particular type of athlete, this particular type of student to go to Brigham Young to now a totally different student and a totally different type to go to Charlottesville.
Yeah.
But I think his big picture is still the same. We want to make UVA a national brand.
Right.
Thank you.
So let's go
global
across the country.
across
We're going
the
to try to
country,
get the guys from Florida. We're going to try to get the guys from Texas. We're going to try to get the guys from the Midwest while still trying to get a couple here and there in the state, even though for the University of Virginia is a state school.
Right.
His thing is now we don't want to pigeonhole UVA. We want to make UVA a national brand. So we got to pull the best of the best from across the country to come to Charlottesville based on the type of student athlete that Bronco wants and is looking for to fit that culture, that he wants and he has developed at UVA.
And I think the argument with the rest, I guess the casual fan of the state of Virginia is we have enough talent in the state to build a good program at Virginia. Like you can recruit at the 757, you can recruit in Richmond, you can recruit in the western part of the state and stay in state and still have a good program. But like you said, Bronco obviously comes from another part of the country and wants to build a national landscape of Virginia. But
here's the other thing. Here's the
Yeah.
other thing with that, to play devil's advocate. You had a coach at UVA.
Yeah, that's a great.
that
I know
wanted
you're
to
going
do
with
that.
that. And he was all about keeping kids in state.
Yeah.
That's a great point. That's a great point, Sean. That's a great point.
And
Because
that's-
everybody was like, "Oh man, he's recruiting." I mean, he recruited basically the whole 757 and 804 to Virginia.
At 5-star. We ain't talking like 1 and 2
Oh my
star.
God, we talking about the top of the top. He had Philip Sims, Andrew Brown, all those guys in there, man.
Taquan Mizell,
Smoke Mizell, yeah.
Larry Jones. He had Chris Bird was there too. I mean, he had top recruits there. The problem was they did not win.
Yep, that's true. That's so true, Sean. That's so true. Great point.
They had
Great
that
point.
1 year in 2011.
Great point.
And they never could duplicate that type of success after that. So they're gonna say, well, okay, we did it.
We tried that way. We tried that way.
Yep.
That's a great point.
Well,
great point.
It didn't work in the way we wanted it to work.
Right.
They got that 1 year. They went to the Peach Bowl or the Chick-fil-A Bowl down in Atlanta. But what they do the next year, and then the next year, and then they
5-7, 6-6.
And then they couldn't beat Tech. That was
a big deal. Yeah.
So then not only are you not winning consistently,
right?
You can't even beat your in-state rival.
And that's huge. Right. You got to beat Tech. At least if you go 1-11, as long as you beat Tech, you know what I'm saying?
So you getting those guys to stay in state.
Yeah, it's just not happening.
You're not going to a bowl game regularly.
Yep.
You're not above 500 regularly. You're not competing for an ACC championship, and you're not beating Tech.
Yeah.
So we got to go in this direction. Yep. And this guy has shown his style he has been successful.
I think he can, I think he's on the right track in Charlottesville for sure. I think he's on the right track.
I honestly think that's the biggest hindrance on Virginia Tech. They remain competitive throughout nationally, but I think that if maybe they had one or two guys that were maybe from out west somewhere.
Yep, I agree. I agree.
To get them over the top.
Yes, I agree with that.
In my personal opinion, that's
you're right. You're dead on that one, bro. You're dead on that one. Hey, Sean, I know we've been talking we could talk to you all night, brother. Man, this is so insightful, man. This is so dope. I got a couple questions though, man. Now that since we're on the college thing, and we asked Mitch Brown about this. What's your take on the whole college kids getting paid? You cover college kids all the time. You see those kids in and out, off the record stuff going on. What's your whole take on the college kids getting paid, man? I know the NCAA is trying to figure something out. You got all these pro leagues popping up.
Yeah.
But what's your whole take on that, man?
I think it's going to be a situation where you're not going to make everybody happy, because if you pay, let's say, you pay the revenue sports athletes, then your non-revenue athletes are not going to get a piece of the pie, and they're going to be upset.
That's what I think too. I agree with that. Yeah.
So I've said this before. To me, if you sell my likeness, you sell my name in a bookstore or something like that, that student athlete, regardless of gender, regardless of sport, should be compensated for that.
Yep.
It should not be solely on
the
football athletes should get paid because they bring in the most money.
Right.
That's not going to work, because you're going to have the softball players. You're going to have, let's say, for example, Connecticut, UConn.
Yep.
Who brings in more money?
The women.
To
the women basketball team.
Than the women's basketball team.
That's right.
So what are you going to say about the football team? Even though
they're going to be left out, man.
They spend the most.
Right.
But they don't generate the most.
Right.
The women's basketball team generates the most. They probably generate more than the men's basketball team, even with the whole tournament stuff.
Yes, sir.
Exactly.
Right.
So what would you say about a program whose, let's say, football team doesn't generate nearly as much as, say, a non-revenue sport?
Okay.
What do you say at that point? That's really not a great argument. There's so to me, it goes back to that school or whatever store. I'm sorry. If they sell the likeness of that particular athlete, that person should get something out of that. That's how I feel about that.
I totally agree.
And I think I think it would be fair for everybody across the board. I don't know if they'll get 100%. They may get 50 or whatever. They should get some sort of percentage of that sale, and it should go to the student athlete, because I mean, it's I mean, we've probably been saying this for years. It's about how ridiculous it is how the NCAA generates.
They're making mad money.
Just by March Madness alone. Not even the college football playoff, because that's not through the NCAA. That's a totally different entity.
Right.
Yep, it is.
But for March Madness itself, men and women. I mean, think about this past tournament with the bubble.
Right.
How the men had their gym set up wonderful.
Yeah, I heard about that. The women,
the women, like stuff like that. So I mean, I don't think you could just say, hey, we're just going to pay just these particular athletes.
Right.
That will never happen. That will never happen, and it would never fly. But I think if you get to a point where if you go to a bookstore and you buy a jersey, and that jersey has the name of that athlete on it, because remember in college, I don't even know if it's still in my closet. I bought a Michael Vick jersey down in the old Coliseum Mall, down in Hampton.
Right.
I don't think his name was on the jersey,
but it was number 7.
Number 7 was on the jersey, so we obviously knew who it was.
Right. They certainly want Kevin Jones.
Exactly.
Kevin Jones was a beast too, but we weren't thinking about him then. Yeah,
he was a beast.
He was a beast, but he wasn't Michael Vick. I hear you, bro.
He ain't lead him to a national championship his freshman year.
Not at all. Exactly. Not at all.
But we know who it was.
Right.
So I mean, I think if you get to a point where you're buying a football jersey or a baseball jersey or a basketball tank top, and the name of that athlete is on the back of that jersey, that person should get something. They should get something for it. You're basically paying. You're paying for their ability.
Right.
You're paying for their name. So why not compensate that student athlete on that purchase?
And it's crazy because y'all remember when not only should they be compensated, but then remember when Ohio State had Terrell Pryor and those guys, and those guys got penalized after they left school, and the NFL penalized them there for what happened in college. They
sold their jerseys and pants and stuff. Yeah, I remember that.
Rings stuff that they earned, and then they go pro, and then they get penalized for going pro for what they did in college.
That's crazy.
Yep.
All right, man. Like I said, man, we could talk to you all night, Sean. I know you got to run. We got to run, but I got a couple of questions left for me, man. Like you talked about driving to Petersburg a few weeks ago, man. And I always ask, me and Larry always talk about this. The reflection, man. You grew up in Petersburg. You're driving through your hometown, and do you ever sit back and think, man, I made it. I did something with my life. You watch yourself on TV, the people hit you up. Oh man, Sean, I remember when you were this little, now you're a big TV star, you know what I'm saying? Does it ever hit you like, man, I'm doing something with my life. I graduated from college. I'm on TV, man. Like, did it ever hit you? Did you ever get time to reflect on that?
Sometimes I do. I don't want to say I reflect on it all the time because I want to think I'm thinking of myself.
No. But you made it though, bro. You made it.
But yeah, I think about it sometimes. I think about it like when I drive past the old neighborhood of Dunlop Street and I see how it looks now as opposed to how I remembered it. And I'm like, man, yeah, that's the house I grew up in. And, I would watch the games with my grandfather.
Yeah.
He was a big sports fan. And we would read the newspaper and I would go right to the sports section and look at the scores and look at the stories and everything like that. And, I think about, that's pretty cool. Not like we talked about earlier. Not a lot of people from Petersburg
preach to him, bro.
Can say they, a lot have made it, others have not. I was one of the lucky ones to say I came out of Petersburg. I came out of the school system. Yep. Graduated from college, got my associates, got my bachelor's. I got a good job. I could, you could do worse probably.
You a TV star, bro. Stop it. You're a TV star.
it pays the bills.
Really?
It pays the bills. It pays the bills.
It pays the bills. But I mean, every once in a while, especially I think.
Yeah, for sure.
I really think about it when I do the banquet, when I go back to Petersburg and do the Hall of Fame banquet, because sometimes my mom is there and she was part of the first class of the new high school. She was the first graduating.
Nice.
She was a part of the first graduating class of the new high school on Johnson Road. And nice. She was pregnant with me at that time. So I always say I was graduate of 75 and 93.
You graduated twice, right?
Graduated twice.
Right.
That's our joke. So I always would go to the school and I would look at her class picture and I'll see her and I'm like, okay, I'm right there.
You're right there.
I'm right there. Yep. So those are kind of like the times I kind of think about like how we grew up. In Petersburg, and then we eventually, we both made it. She got her, associates, bachelor's, master's degree.
Nice, bro. Nice.
So I think those are kind of like those times at the banquet when I see her and she's at the table and she kind of looks at me while I'm reading the scripts, and I'm like, you know what, Petersburg wasn't that bad. We did something. Yeah. It took a lot of hard work. We took some bumps. We overcame some hurdles, but it can be done. And I kind of, I won't say I use it as a chip because, but sometimes you do because when you say, hey, I'm from Petersburg, or I went to Virginia State. Sometimes you get that like,
right.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
Yep. That's very true.
So I'm like, in the pandemic, I would wear my Virginia State University mask. I'm like, I'm not ashamed that I went to VSU because that was my foundation to get to where I am right now. And I do that all the time. Like if I go to VSU or I go to Richard Bland or I go to Petersburg High, I may take a picture. Like a few weeks ago, I was working out and I wore like a dry fit shirt of each of those schools. And I was saying, this is part of my foundation. Richard Bland, part of my foundation. When I went there, Petersburg High, part of my foundation. Virginia State, this was like the last part of it to get me to where I am. These were the building blocks to get me to a point of where I am right now of, being on Channel 6 and talking with you guys about, the Petersburg sports landscape and landscape of sports here in this area. I mean, without those three pillars, I mean, who knows? Who knows what I'd be doing right now? Who knows if I'm even here, period.
Right.
If I didn't have that. So no, I think about that a lot. But like I said, the most, especially when I do the Hall of Fame banquet, because a lot of those inductees I either went to school with, the most recent ones, like a Cheryl Taylor. That was another one I was thinking of, Cheryl Taylor. Cheryl Taylor in basketball.
Basketball. Yep.
Yeah.
Man,
and she went to another UVA, another one in this area that went to UVA. Played for Debbie Ryan. Marco Harrison, he graduated 2 years after I did, and he went to NC State, then to St. Paul's. Nicole Cook, great track star.
She was amazing. I remember her name.
And then went to
track.
Went to Tennessee. Jerome Mathis, same thing. He did track and football.
Mathis was Mathis was. Let me tell you,
he was different.
I got it. Okay, so let me say something. Okay, so in basketball it was hard. In football, it had to be Jerome Mathis. I never saw him in person though. I saw him on film. Like,
I did too.
My man would run kickoffs like he was on the track. Man, dude was like just running the 100-yard dash, oh my God, that dude was so nice, man.
He was legit.
He was legit, bro. Petersburg High representing. He was legit.
Salita Thomas for basketball too, great player.
I remember her.
93.
Yeah. No, she graduated. She graduated 95.
95.
Yeah, 2 years after I did. So these are these are people.
Man, Petersburg, like I said, man.
I was in those hallways.
Yeah, man. You saw all that, man. Yeah, that's why I think Petersburg always. I don't want to say just got overlooked, like I asked you earlier, but it just people forget about some of the athletes that came from that area. Mm-hmm. It's so many. Like you mentioned, Jerome Mathis. You named Marco Harrison. Those guys and girls were just amazing in their high school career.
I mentioned Remus.
Yeah, Remus. Yeah.
It's different. But it's different though. Like I would say, it'd be equivalent to Hampton and Petersburg. I would say kind of like one and the same.
Hampton, Virginia. I would say that. Yeah. There's so many. You can name so many people, and like Marcus Hagan said when we interviewed him, he was like, you can forget people of so many. You just name it all.
So many people from Petersburg.
No question. Just I mean, not only in Petersburg. If we just said we focus on the Tri-Cities, you would be, hell, for Prince George, Jackie Bradley Jr.
Oh man. Listen to this, man.
Baseball
Come on,
standout. So I mean,
oh my goodness, yes.
We could be doing it for days, but I think the thing that kind of separated the schools north of the James was the fact that some of those schools wound up winning state titles.
That's the difference.
Right, that's the difference.
They won titles.
Where some were,
John
outside,
Marshall. Yep.
Yeah, John Marshall, George Witt.
But people keep forgetting John Marshall didn't win anything though. Neither did George Witt. Not until the realignments.
That's true. Very good point.
They were always great teams that didn't win. John Marshall didn't win there. They won his Marshall.
They lost to Iverson. They lost to Iverson Bethel team. Right.
Yeah. And then they lost in '97 to Hampton with Ronald Carey and them.
Yeah, they did. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, they always got there just like Petersburg, but they didn't close. Same as George Witt. George Witt, the '92 team. Then you go to the 99 and you go to the 2000.
That's true, man.
I mean,
Matorka had Dean and the guy Chris White who passed away, who was listen, Chris White was a problem as well. East Tennessee State was recruiting him. So last question for me, man. It's getting late. I know you gotta go, man. Larry probably got a question or two too, man. But last question for me. You've grinded your whole life, Sean. What advice would you give a young journalist, man, trying to make it? I know it's easier now than it was back in the early 90s, mid-90s.
No question.
But is there something you hang your hat on, bro, like that you always could just tell a young journalist that's trying to break into the business?
I think the one thing that I hang my hat on even to this day is like when somebody, they may not even say it, but they think I can't do something.
Right.
And what I mean by that is, it's like if there's like an event or let's say as a game, play by play and stuff like that, and there's a game coming up, and there wasn't a thought of me doing the game, and they went into another direction. Right. That kind of like why didn't they?
Why didn't they ask you?
Why wasn't I thought?
Right.
I got credentials in play by play. I could do that. So that kind of motivates me. There's like, okay, you don't think I can do it, so let me try to prove to you that I can do it.
Right.
And I may not tell that person, or it may not be, by verbal, but I'm, you can kind of see body language and see some things like, maybe. But that's one thing I like to hang my hat on is like proving to people that I can do it, as opposed to thinking that somebody else can do it. And also just the grind. I mean,
that's it.
I tell the students now, I was like, don't think, you are too good not to take an internship. if you think you can just go walk out of school and get yourself the job that you've always wanted for.
But see, a lot of kids now expect just to walk into something.
Yes.
And
It's not like when me. It's not like when me, you and Larry came up. We had to grind for that stuff, man. It's different.
I mean, we were in the radio station at State, 2, 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
Some nights,
Yep.
and not getting paid.
Not getting paid nothing, bro.
Doing
For the love, bro.
Yeah, working on promos and things of that nature for upcoming games and doing homework and research for stuff and ain't getting it done. But it was like you're around people that you liked at that time and you wanted to hang out.
Right.
We had a common bond. We had a common goal. And so now it's like everybody thinks that as soon as you get into the building. You get paid, and it was like you're gonna be like Stuart Scott or something. It's not gonna work like that, bro.
No,
ain't gonna work. No, ain't gonna work. So I mean, that's like my thing. Is like I tell people now. Like I said, I don't want to be that be viewed as the grumpy old man. Like, well, this is
man. But you dropping that knowledge, man, and people need to hear this. Like, you've grinded, and you talked about that chip from Virginia State, the chip from Petersburg, and like I told somebody the other day, there's no blueprint for everybody has their own path for success.
Yeah.
But your chip got you to where you were, man. And I love that grind, bro. And I can see it. I can see it on your broadcast, bro. I can see how you got that chip.
Yeah.
And you have that enthusiasm on how you come across on air, man.
It's like you got to. I think Kobe Bryant said it. Like you gotta self motivate.
Yes.
You can't be satisfied.
Right.
With just getting there.
Right.
You gotta prove to people, especially now in these times where, especially in my field, where we have a lot of these stations downsizing sports departments.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Yes.
I've got to show them daily.
Yep.
And I don't know if it's because like I said, the whole self-motivation thing. Like if I was 20 years younger,
right,
would it be an issue? If I was a different color,
right,
would it be a different issue?
Absolutely.
Right.
So it's always it's like in my head, like okay, this state, like these stations, like I said, I was only weekend sports anchor in the Richmond market. At one time, I think before Mitch left Norfolk, there was only 5 anchors of color, males of color.
Come on, man. Come on, man.
State.
Come on, man.
I was the only one in Richmond.
Come on.
There were 2 in Norfolk, and 2 in Southwest Virginia, I believe.
Come on, bro.
1, 2.
No, Northern Virginia, maybe.
No. 2 in Southwest Virginia. Yeah,
okay.
One in both in Lynchburg.
Lynchburg, okay.
Market.
Well, okay, I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah. When Mitch left to go to Columbia, it's now me in Richmond, 1 in Norfolk, and the 2 in the Lynchburg Roanoke market. So there are only 4 African-American male sports anchors in the entire state. So my thing is, okay, well, I got to prove to you that I am a valuable asset to your company.
Right.
So I could just say, hey, especially when college football season and college basketball season rolls around on the weekends, where would you want to go to see your highlights? If VC's at home, okay, yeah, it was on national TV, but it's got to be something. It's something that's got to entice you to watch me, as opposed to, okay, we know they won, no big deal. Or especially for like for football, like if Virginia Tech will be on national television, okay, Richmond may not be, William and Mary won't be, James Madison won't be, high school teams will play on Saturday. Okay, we got to find out what happens there, So it's like I said, that self-motivation. It's like I've got to show you. I ain't gonna say it. I won't say it because I don't want to be like, I don't want to like toot my own horn, but like,
No, man. Yeah, I love this, bro. I love
this. It's a podcast, so you can't say it.
No, but he's still employed by 6. So,
but I mean, but I mean, like at work, like I'm not gonna go to my news.
No, yeah, for sure. No, I know what you're saying. And I love that self motivation. And we talk to athletes all the time, and they have that. But to have, a broadcaster say that, I mean, that's
survival mode always kicks in.
Yes,
Yep.
always. And that's why you talked about you only 4 African Americans in the state. That's why I asked that question about being from Petersburg, going to Virginia State. I mean, come on, man. You made it, bro. You last, you one of the guys standing and representing where you're from. Every time you come on that air, you represent where you're from. Seriously. I mean, you don't think about that, but there could be somebody who, like, when they find out he's from the same area I'm from. I want to be like Sean Robertson. I know it's a stretch in your mind, but in the big picture, that's what people are thinking.
That's true.
I do hear that like from old classmates, like
for sure, absolutely.
Who have children, and we like, we saw you on TV. It was like, hey, I told my daughter, or I told my son, I know him.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
That's what I'm saying, bro.
I'm like, really?
Yeah, you don't think about it like that, but you're like, man, wait a minute. Yeah, man, that's dope, man. That's so dope, man.
Yeah. It does take me back a little bit when like I said, a classmate who, it's 20, 30 years ago, we were,
right.
walking in the halls, and then, you got a family. It was like, yeah, I saw you Saturday, doing a sportscast and everything like that. And somebody was like, why are you watching the sports? I'm like, well, my old classmate is on. That's him. I know him.
See,
like,
that's dope, man. I love that stuff,
okay.
man.
So,
that's dope. That's so dope, man.
It's more appreciative, especially when you come from humble beginnings.
Yeah,
I know everybody has. Yeah. But when you come from that in Petersburg, and me, I'm coming from Northside Highland Park.
Okay.
Wooby grew up in Baltimore.
Okay.
So
be more.
So
all day, baby, all day. Yeah.
So that it's like it makes you more appreciative.
It does.
Versus,
I agree with that.
Us raising our children in different environments.
Yep.
Because we don't want them to kind of go through what we had to go through.
Man, he's preaching that. It's like a Sunday for him, because he's telling the truth. It's like, we grew up in that spot. We're humble, and we know what grind is about. But we don't want our kids and everybody we're with to be going through what we went through. We want to give them an easier path. But we just internally know what the grind was about, man.
My mother said it all. She said it all the time, and I kept like saying, "Nah, whatever." But then it was like, but like when you have a child, and you look at that child, it is like, there's no way in hell.
There's no way they're gonna go through the same thing I went through.
You are gonna go through what I went through.
Nope.
As a kid. There's no way. And it's like I'm hearing it all over again. I'm like, she's just
tell him.
Yeah, I do remember.
Larry, tell her, Larry, Larry went to Kennedy High, which is Kennedy is no longer around, right?
That's right. It's Armstrong.
Yeah, Armstrong now.
Yeah.
And his son went to Trinity and played basketball for Trinity. And matter of fact, you mentioned Mondo Baycott and all those guys. Jacobs, he played with all those guys. Oh, really? Larry grinded and was like, look, man, you going, the captain of the team. His son was the captain of that team. He's like, no, you're going to Trinity.
What was his name?
Malik Merritt, number 10. He was the 2 guard. He was the only one that didn't get off of that year.
I do remember
those other 4 guys.
I do remember him. Yeah.
See, he remember him, man.
I do remember him.
And Sean was at our games.
He was at his games, and his dad, Larry Merritt, instilled that confidence and that hard working ability in him, and that's why he's my guy, man. I mean,
proud upon for sending my kid to Kennedy. I mean, to Trinity.
To Trinity. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you would
even if he made it or not, you looking at the games like, yeah, that's my son. You know what I mean? So,
trust me. So I understand. So that's why I say, I'm sure you get frowned upon for just saying, man, oh man, he grew up with us, but then some people frown upon you because you're like, oh, you think you all that because you name stuff like that.
Yeah, of course, that's always gonna happen. That's always gonna happen.
Right, it's always be like that.
You get that from time to time. Like, I got. In fact, when I got married, I heard that.
See,
I heard that. It was like you sold out. Like, why would you do that? I'm like, well,
right. I mean, it's called life. You know what I mean?
It's right.
Yeah,
and I think that's the stupidest thing. I just don't understand that. I'm
like, nobody gets
like,
it. Man.
Like, what did you sell out for?
Yeah,
nothing.
I'm just like
nothing.
Oh yeah, but no, I'm totally with you. I was like when he was born, I was like, no, we ain't
doing that. We ain't going down that road. I'm gonna do my best to make sure you're not on that road.
Yeah.
No,
but look, man, Sean, we can have a part 2, 3, 4, and 5 with you, bro. I mean, we've been talking this was amazing. I knew it was going to be amazing, and I'm so glad. We booked.
You tell me when we can make that happen. We can do a
part two. We got to have a part 2 and 3, man.
We definitely gonna have a part 2, man.
Because I got so much that I want to ask you, man. But we're gonna leave it at part 1 right now, bro. For right now, and we really appreciate you. No, seriously, Sean, we appreciate you coming on, man.
Yes,
this is a blessing to us, man.
This was
especially for 2 guys in a truck.
Exactly. Tell them, Larry. 2 guys. That's our motto. 2 guys in a truck, man. Just having a podcast, just talking sports.
I'm loving it.
Because Sean, and the reason why we say that, because we're just 2 guys, we're 2 fans. We didn't play sports in school.
Yeah.
We're just regular guys. I didn't go to college. Wooby went to college. So for someone like yourself and the other 12 people that came on, the other athletes, we really appreciate it, because people don't really, cling to us like that. Well, what do you know them from? Or it's always an affiliation when you come onto somebody's show. It has to be, well, they may be, all in smoke, or they may be so-and-so or so-and-so. They had this, and we don't have none of that.
Nope.
So it's like, well, what incentive do I have to go on their show?
It's all about respect. Yeah,
right.
That's what it is. I mean, we've had a good list of people come on, but it's people that we know personally, and we're just trying to start this off. And for you to come on and just not only give your expertise, but just give your thoughts on some things that are going on. It was amazing, bro.
Man, it was a blast. I'm looking at the time. I'm like, man, we've been talking this long.
I know. We didn't realize we've been talking that long.
We didn't expect it to be like that.
We didn't expect it to be that long. I mean, I thought you had a show. I thought you had to go on air. I told Larry, I said, man, he's got to go. We got like 30 minutes to an hour. He's got to go, but we definitely got to get you. We definitely appreciate it. We'll get you back on. And man, listen, follow him on Twitter. Go give your social media accounts, Sean.
Social media, Twitter, CBS6 Sports Sean, and then on Instagram, SKR1125. On Facebook is Sean Robertson, WTVR CBS6.
Follow him in all those media accounts. This show was amazing. Oh my goodness, man! Everything covered, man. We covered Petersburg. We covered everything, bro. Like the global spectrum of sports, huh? Did you say, Larry?
And I did want to ask one last question. What was your reaction to Ben Wallace getting into the Hall of Fame?
Oh yeah, good question. Good question.
About time.
Yes, about time. Yes,
it's about time. I mean, everybody always want to focus on the points and a score, but for him to basically dominate games, on the defensive end, the way that he
did, game plan for that.
Yeah.
And look, and one more thing. The first undrafted Hall of Famer ever. Come on, bro. Ever in the Hall of Fame. Basketball Hall of Fame. That's crazy, man.
They played in this area. They played
man.
Played at the Ash Center, not the Siegel Center or the JPJ. He played at the Ash Center / Barco Stevens.
Barco Stevens, yeah.
Right.
But that's a credit. That's a credit to him. And that's a credit to Dave Robbins.
Yes.
Another Hall of Famer.
Yes. He should be. He should be.
For what he did, 7. I thought he was in the Hall of Fame, but maybe if I might be wrong.
Was he? Is he in the Hall of Fame? Is he? I think he is. He in there? He might be. He might be in there. I think
he is in there.
I think he is in there.
If he's not, he should be. But I think he is. 3 national championships in Division II, 700 plus wins. And the amount of talent he had, not only with Ben, but AJ English and other guys, the Byersons, Oak,
Terry Davis, all those
Terry
guys,
Davis,
man.
And also props to Bobby Dandridge, a Norfolk State grad, Little State.
Oh, yeah.
Going into the Hall.
Absolutely.
I believe he's the first Spartan.
I think so. And that's well deserved too. About time.
And then also, I believe, first Maggie Walker grad.
See?
To make the Naismith Hall of Fame. Another guy in our backyard.
Right in that backyard in Richmond. Yes, sir.
2 Maggie Walker Hall of Famers with Willie Lanier, unless I missed another one for Maggie Walker.
You're right. I think you're right on with that.
Some horses came
out. Oh my God. Like I said, we could have a part 2, 3, and 4 just talking about Richmond sports, man. It's crazy.
So yeah.
But look, Sean, man, we appreciate you, man. We would definitely keep in touch with you.
Absolutely.
We will let you know when this thing is on all our media outlets, man. And again, man, much love. We appreciate you, bro. Thank you for everything.
I had a blast. Keep doing what you're doing. Much respect to what you guys do in the grind. like we were talking about. And like I said, you let me know when you want to do a part 2, and I'll be on there with you.
Man, we appreciate that, man.
As we speak.
Thank
working
you,
on
sir.
that as we speak. My mind is working right now.
Yeah, man. Sean Robertson, man. CBS 6 in Richmond. Listen, man, Petersburg native, we appreciate it, man. Thank you so much, sir.
My pleasure, guys. My pleasure.
All right, man. Take it easy, bro.
Thank you.
All right.